I've always had a bit of ADHD about me. I just enjoy making money, let's be real. We want to do our first million month in revenue. It was a real hard balance because the first 3 years it was technically a side hustle alongside my sailing. Once I tripled the income I was getting from sailing.
We're talking like what, 60, 70k in profit?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Something what you want to do, and let's build the business around that because we're in a fortunate position where we can do that.
You didn't build this business to run this business. You built it to own it, right?
You can build a business that works without you. If I ever get nervous, ever get like butterflies in my stomach, I'm like, right, I'm ready for battle, let's go.
How would you recommend they could start to change the way that sounds in their head?
So first off,
so let's start then for getting an understanding of 53 Degrees property. Obviously, I know what this is. We're both in the same world, but let's just pretend the person listening has zero idea, like no idea what you do and how you do it. Give them an idea.
Yeah, cool. So 53's property basically has two services. So we have our rent to service accommodation side, so our guaranteed rent service for landlords, and then we have our Airbnb management side. And in simple terms, the rent to service accommodation side, we guarantee the rent to the landlords for 3 to 5 years. We then agree that we can let it out on a short-term basis, and we make the profit. The profit is basically what we pay the landlord, and then above that, what we take in is our profit. And usually per deal, you make somewhere between £800 to £1,000 a month. And the management side, we take a management fee to operate that property as a short-term let. So we'll take a 15% management fee and we'll operate it as an Airbnb or short-term let for the landlord and then take that as our revenue that comes in.
What do you prefer?
Honestly, I think the rent to SA side is a bit more enjoyable because you don't have to deal with the landlords, but also the management side, you can scale much faster as well. So the rent to SA side I enjoy because you have a bit more control over it. You can put your own spin on things. It's your deal at the end of the day. But the management side, you can scale faster. There's less risk involved. So I enjoy both of them, to be honest with you. I just enjoy making money. Let's be real.
All right, well, let's stick on that then. So profit-wise, like let's think about the size of the portfolio then. Because for me, like mine is relatively small in comparison. I've got 12 in my portfolio. That's good for me, you know? What's the size and what sort of profit are you looking at?
Yeah, so we've got 32 rent to SAs at the moment. We've got 70 plus management. I say 70 plus because we're basically taking on like 2 properties a week at the moment. So the figure's kind of always moving. But we are over 100 once the current properties are onboarded, we've also got 4 properties that we own ourselves. So yeah, each of the rent to SA makes, let's say, £1,000 a month profit. That's 32k a month profit in the rent to SA business. The management business makes somewhere between 500 to up to £1,500 a month per deal. So like London, we make £1,500 a month. But in Liverpool, we might make £200, £300 a month. So if we took like £500 a month, let's just say that, I mean, that's another £35,000 a month profit on the rent to SA, on the management, sorry. And then we've got our deals that we own ourselves, the 4 that we own in Crew. They make somewhere probably around like the £700 to £1,000 a month mark because they're on repayment mortgages, SA mortgages, which charge a high interest rate.
So if my rough back of the envelope maths is correct, we're talking like what, 60, 70k in profit?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 60, 70k profit a month. Yeah, it's pretty good. yeah, not bad. It's all right.
If I was listening then, I'd be like, oh my God, 70k per month profit. You know, if I was in a job, that's just like wild numbers. Like that's more than the average salary. That's like double probably what an average salary might be in profit. As you and I know, like it's not always that. That doesn't mean you, Dan, just receive 70k. Like, so like for you, like do you pay yourself much?
So to be fair, we do it like quite tax efficiently, and honestly, like you don't need to pay yourself. I don't pay myself that much out of the business. I do have other businesses that pay me as well. But for me, it's like very much like where you are in life and like what you're trying to do with the business, how far you're trying to take it. Like you say, that profit looks amazing, right? But ultimately that is like, you know, net profit on each of the deals. So obviously the business has a lot of administration costs as well, which will bring that down. And depending on what you're trying to do with the business, are you trying to like gear it to sell it? Are you trying to make value in the business, or are you trying to just get profits to close to zero as possible on the bottom line? So you could say like the bottom line is zero, but it's not. It gets to a point you just can't get the bottom line to zero. And so you have to pay some sort of corporation tax. But yeah, with the profit side, you know, that's not something that I don't take all that money in. And also it's taken 5 years to get to that place as well. It's not like we just did it overnight. But yeah, I pay myself, to be honest, I just pay myself the minimum salary wise. And then in terms of like the most tax efficient salary we can take, which I think is like £12,750. And then we take dividends up to the maximum allowance, which is like 37,500 or something, where you get taxed 7.5%. Don't quote me on all those numbers, but I think that's the correct amount. We just work with an accountant, actually my dad, so shout out to him, who sorts all that out. And we just, ultimately you just want to get good tax advice. And we don't, like I said, I don't need to take all that money out, so I wouldn't take any more out than I need to. You know.
I do the exact same thing, actually. The small salary and then bit of dividends. It's plenty, you know. When you started, right, you said you started 4 years ago. For example, right, a lot of people start businesses for different reasons. For example, for me, when I started, I wanted to just be more geographically flexible and not necessarily have to be here or go to an office. I'm quite rebellious, you might say, in that sense. But when you started it versus to where you are now, because you're going on a different trajectory to me, whereas where you have the same vehicle, right, but we kind of want different things from it. Like when you started, what did you want it to be at that point?
Yeah, so when I started, I was in a much different place as well. So I just finished university. I was sailing for Great Britain at the time as well. And my dad had a small portfolio, and this is kind of how I got into it. My dad kind of said, like, I'll help, you know, but he's busy with his accountancy business. So he wanted to, like, prove I could do it alongside the sailing. And me and my mum said, look, let's go 50-50 into it. And what happened was I came out of university and I just had all this free time because all my life I'd been balancing, like, even GCSE level, balancing GCSE and sailing, hockey, balancing. And then went to university, I was balancing GB sailing and university. So when I finished university, I had all this free time. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do with it? And yes, you know, I was sailing every single day. I was full-time sailing, but you could only sail really like 5 days a week, let's say. And then so your weekends were free and also all the evenings were free. Like there's only so much gym, bike, planning and sailing you can do in a day. So I had a lot of spare time that I wanted to fill it with something. I obviously saw my dad's small portfolio that he was getting passive income from. So I had a bit of, you know, he'd done developments before. I could see that property was something that, you know, you can make passive money from. And I was like, yeah, I want passive income. So the reason for starting it was ultimately like, I wanted to create, it's a bit different from myself, but yeah, I wanted to create an income alongside my sailing so that sailing wasn't the thing that I was getting paid for. I was doing it because I wanted to go to Olympics and wanted to get a gold medal. And I wanted to pursue that dream rather than, am I just doing this? I had this question, am I just doing this because it's the only thing that pays me? It doesn't pay well. It pays you enough to like sustain, like net zero for the month probably, because all your expenses are paid for and stuff like that. But it was kind of, I had this just thing in my head where I was like, am I just doing this because I'm doing it and it's like easy and I'm getting paid for it? Am I doing this because it's a dream of mine? So once I'd replaced I'd more than replaced, tripled the income I was getting from sailing in the property side. And then when it came to Olympic trials, I could put 100% into it. Yes, that meant we might get into it, but yes, that meant it hurt even more and we didn't get there. But I did know that I looked back and I did everything I could to try and get there. And like I can, hand on heart say I spent a year and a half fully engaged in the sailing side of it. And yeah, it didn't work out. But look back, and if the whole time I wouldn't have known if I was doing it just because it was the thing that I did and I was getting paid for, or it's the thing that I did because I wanted to pursue that dream of being an Olympian. So for me, that's why I started it. As I obviously finished sailing, it's always been in the back of my mind. It's that like passive income. I love to travel, as you probably know. I love to travel. I love to be in different places. I don't want to be, like you say, geographically locked down anywhere. And I just don't think I'd work for anyone else. I've never worked for anyone else in my life. I'm very fortunate to say that. But I've always had, probably a bit of ADHD about me, like, entrepreneurial spirit, wanting to always do something, have like different plates spinning all the time. Like I like to keep a quite fast lifestyle.
Were you one of the kids who was like selling sweets in the yard?
I'll be honest, look, I wasn't that kid, and I look back and I don't know where like the entrepreneurial spirit came from, but year 7, 8 and 9, and I've said this on some other podcasts as well, but like year 7, 8 and 9, I was like such a bad student. Like I was like, year 7, 8 and 9, you're probably 11, I think it's like 11 to 13. I think 13, 14, something like that. I forgot, I don't know what age it is, but I think it's like 13, 14. It makes around, 13, 14. So around that age, and I was just like disrupting class. My grades were really low. I didn't have any entrepreneurial spirit. I was a little fat kid. Like, I wasn't fat, but I was chubby. And then I think when I started sailing in like year 9, year 10, that's the first time that I set goals and I could see there was like progression. And then I started to do that in other parts of my life as well. So I think sailing kind of saved me in that respect. Having something to focus towards. And yeah, I think that's where my, not entrepreneurial spirit, but like spirit to, do something better in my life came from, for sure.
But you've never worked for anyone. Yeah. Did you never have a job when you were like 15?
Never had a job because I was always sailing. So by the time I got to a point, like year 7, 8, 9, I was just having fun with the lads, to be honest with you. Just messing around in school. It was so weird. And then never had a job on the side. And like year 10 and 11 is normally when you start to like do those, like Waitrose or something. But I'd started sailing, so I applied for Waitrose, to be fair. I don't know if I think I actually got turned down the job because I was like, yeah, I'm not actually going to be around that much. So they probably just said like, this guy's, I got through to the in-person interviews though, which was, we got through, the CV was obviously there. But yeah, I never had a job, but I did at school. You know, I was deputy head boy. I organised all the social events. I was like the social sec, as it were. And yeah, I took the heat for everything in all the head boy meetings with the head teacher. I took the heat for it all because it was just, I was a scapegoat because I was the GB sailor, so it was fine. But yeah, I'd never, whilst I never had a job as such, I did, you know, put my mind to a lot of things.
So that's wild to me to think that you've never had a job, because I don't know many people who've like never had like any sort of like, because you've no reference point, you don't know what it's like to be pissed off at your boss.
Yeah, I really never. I'm very fortunate to say, obviously, I've never had a job, but also there is a part of me that doesn't know what the other side's like. You know, when I was at university, I wasn't in property, I wasn't in the business, I was just sailing in university, and I watched Wolf of Wall Street, and I was like, yes, I want to be finance, I want to be like stock trader. So I positioned myself at university doing economics and finance. I just went all down the finance route, stocks, trading, everything like that. And I do still do a lot of stocks, trading, crypto, stuff like that. And that is what I've used that degree for, really, and all the knowledge I learned in there. And I've had the best 3 years of my life as well. But yeah, I've never had a boss as such. I had a boss at uni, to be fair. So I was a sales rep at university for some of the events, and I became like one of the head sales reps for like one of the biggest events in Exeter. So I did have a boss at some point, but that was literally first week university freshers. I wanted to get a hat, and I had to sell some tickets. So that's probably the only time I've had a job, I guess.
So you've like, the reason you started then was that you finished uni, this dream had kind of, you know, came and went, let's say, and then you saw your dad's portfolio making money, and then you were like, fuck it, I'm just going to give this a crack. And then fast forward 5 years now, you're making 70K in your business in profit a month. Like, you know, definitely pat on the back worthy, let's say. Did you think when starting, could you have imagined that you'd be this far? Or did you think you'd be further, or did you think you'd be less?
Yeah, I don't want to sound cocky, but I'm really good at like visualization. So I can definitely see, you know, exactly where we're going to get to. I always knew we were going to hit 3 figures in the number of units. It's just like how long it takes. So for me, it was a real hard balance, because the first 3 years, it was technically a side hustle alongside my sailing. So we did limit growth. So we only took on, during the first 2 years, obviously you can't get deals falling at your feet. So we were working for deals. But once it got to a point where we could take on more than one property a month, we actually limited it to 1 property a month. And we created like a bit of demand. And we just basically said 1 property a month's all we can do, because Dan's sailing. Mum doesn't want to, you know, put all this effort into, you know, doesn't want to work full time non-stop. So when I wasn't sailing, I'd be working on the business. When I was sailing, because we were only taking on 1 property and we weren't scaling crazy fast, it meant that I could focus on, you know, building the business out. But I do, in hindsight, we could have grown much faster, but it has meant we've built out a really good team. And that slow growth actually is, I think, a bit of silver lining to it as well. So yeah, I always knew we were going to get to this level. It's just like, you have to pinch. I don't really reflect on it that much. You have to pinch yourself sometimes. And it's like you say, 70 grand a month's absolutely mental, but you don't really think about it too much, because, you know, you're looking for 6 figures a month. We want to do our first $1 million month in revenue. And I think we'll get that in the next 6 months, hopefully, with the growth plans.
Does the goalpost just always move?
100%, yeah. The goalpost never is in the same place. And this is something where I've definitely realised I need to enjoy the journey more, because I'm always thinking about the next thing. It was like the Rolex as well. It was like, I really want to get a Rolex. So the first time we did like £1 million revenue in our rent to SA business, I was like, right, I'll get a Rolex. And then it was like, right now I want AP. Right now I want like Patek. So it's just, the goalposts always move. And for me, yeah, as once you realise that, you then go, okay, right, then I want to just enjoy what I do. And I'm really strong on to my mum, my sister, who also work in the business. I'm like, don't tell me what you're doing right now. Tell me what you want to do, and let's build the business around that, because we're in a fortunate position where we can do that. So an example would be, my mum would always like check Slack and basically be like a low-key guest services manager. But I'm like, Mum, you don't want to do that. So what do you want to do? And let's build the business that way. Because if we build the business that way and there's no business there, then so be it. Let's move on. Let's go to something else. I'm very like cutthroat when it comes to that. Obviously the business will work, and it's a figure of speech. But if you build the business how you want to build it and you've got no money left at the end of the day, then you need to do something else, because it's not a business, right? So everyone just builds themselves a job. So anyone who would be looking to leave their job, you know, to build a business, don't just go and build yourself a job, because that is the worst thing you can do.
I had the fucking same realization. You know, I was like a year and a half into building the business. As I said, smaller scale than yours, so I can relate to all of these things just on a smaller scale. But then it got to this point and I was like, I don't want to necessarily make this bigger. This is like a nice amount for me right now. And I don't want, with more of this becomes more of a job for me. And this, like you said to your mum, that's not how I want to build this and what I want to be doing. And that's what's kind of led me to this now, to starting a podcast, because I feel like, why not share that with people? But it's about building what you want to be, right?
Yeah, people also don't realize that it's actually possible when so I imagine anyway, like I say, I haven't really been in a job. The only jobs I've had, sales rep at university, and I was a DJ at some point, but self-employed gigs, so it was really good. But what I'm saying is, people don't realize what you can do. You can build a business. An actual business is one that works without you. A business is not a business that you work in unless you're an employee or you're a director and you have a specific role and responsibility. And I've knew this from the start, and literally instantly we got 2 units, we had 4 VAs. You might think, 2 VAs. And when we had 4 units, we had 2 VAs. And you might think that's an absolute massive overkill, but I don't want to do guest services. I don't want to ever take a phone call from guests. So I need to have VAs there. So instantly you're building the business as it should be, rather than just building yourself a job.
You don't want to run this business. You want to own this business, right? And I said this to me and you both mentor people. We're part of the same community. One of the common things that I see in people who have built a similar business to yours and mine is that they're just caught up in the weeds. And Henry, who was on the podcast a few days ago, said it brilliantly. He said there's £10 tasks, £100 tasks, and £1,000 tasks. And everyone just gets caught up doing £10 tasks all day. And I'm saying to these mentees, you didn't build this business to run this business. You built it to own it, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you love what you do, and you say, for example, you love guest services, then by all means put yourself in that role. That's fine. But then you need to have other people in other roles that are doing the other jobs, because otherwise you will just build yourself a job. And I think ultimately it depends on what gives you purpose in life, right? But you do need to set out, if you start a business, what do you want to get out of this? Are you trying to build the business because you just want some money? What's the end goal? But then what do you want to do on a day-to-day basis? So what level it's at. Like you say, if you're happy at the level you're at now, then great, go do your podcast. For me, I am now what I want to do is expand into different markets. I love networking, meeting new people, open up new businesses. Literally got 7 different businesses. I absolutely love it. Just thrill for being a CEO and just businesses. So that's what I want to do. So if I can do that in my business, which we will do, and we'll obviously look at acquiring, cleaning, maintenance, other businesses. That's what I love doing. So I'm going to build it that way.
So if I was listening now, I'd be probably a little bit hyped up. I'm all right, Dan has gone in a few years from building this business and it sounds great. You've got loads of money coming in. You're making all these decisions. You're very autonomous. You travel a lot. Amazing, right? I think it'd be useful to maybe explain what life as a serviced accommodation operator, right, is like. And now a common word we hear a lot in this industry, Karens, right? There's a lot of Karens. When people stay in your property, the Karen level dials up significantly on average. The average person is more likely to be a Karen. And we know this all too well. What is a standout Karen for you?
A standout Karen. I'll be honest, the bigger you get, the more Karens you get. And it is very, very linear in that respect. Standout Karens are just people, I'll be honest, the Karens you get, and they don't always come across badly, are the ones who pay the least money. People who are worst Karens are, shout out to Liverpool here, our worst Karens are, someone who's staying in a 1-bed L17 who's paid £50-60 a night, and they want to get every single discount here and there. Our best guests are luxury clients who spend 15 grand a month for an apartment in London. They know exactly what they're expecting. Yes, they might require a few extra things, but most of them are business people who understand we've got a business and the reputation, and we're going to do what we can to serve them. And they're very, everything you do to try and save them is, they're thank you, thank you for this, because they understand that we are trying to do our best. Whereas a Karen, everything you do is not good enough. So no matter if you solve the issue, they want compensation. And like I say, it's always people who always want that little extra discount. So if you were to start this business, there's an easy way around this. Just pitch yourself in the luxury higher end or the long-term end. I think like yourself, London, long-term guests, you get less Karens as an example because you've got longer to deal with it. It's basically the thing. And if you do get a Karen for a long-term guest, you can get them out and it's okay. And you can get your next long-term guest in. But ultimately, a Karen is someone who just stays at your property with the sole intention of trying to get money back before you even stepped a foot through the front door. What I would say is if you're going to get into this market, and what we're doing as well, expanding to the luxury end, the higher end, and just make your clients people that aren't going to complain, which is quite easy to do if you just get the higher end market.
I think in sticking with what this business can actually throw at you and what curveballs, right? There's a lot of curveballs in this business. It's not smooth. But prostitutes,
Nice.
you had quite a few experiences with prostitutes, as per your Instagram.
Hey, prostitutes aren't all bad, you know. Like we have had a lot of prostitutes stay at our properties, and sometimes we don't know, sometimes we do know. It's easy to find out afterwards. Obviously, the worst, to be honest with you, the worst are like gangs. Like if a gang comes and makes your house a drug den or makes it like a stash house, that's when there's an issue. Rather than like prostitutes just have. If there's like neighbours, for example, they have, 10 guys coming in every single night, and it's like between the hours of like 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. But usually what happens is they'll book the property for 7 days, and then they'll only use 2 of those nights to make all their money back. And I actually went into, a good story, I guess we've probably got time for it, but I went into one of the properties because I was in the area anyway. We noticed on the camera the night before that there was literally one guy every 10 minutes coming through the front door, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is rough. Anyway, I went to the property, knocked on the door. I could see people scurrying around in the house. I was like, and then they just didn't answer the door. I was like, this is weird. Rang the guest. A guy answered, and then I could see there was like 3 women in the house. Anyway, I can only presume he was obviously the PIMP. So I knocked on the door again. They finally answered the door, and this lady, Brazilian lady, opens the door, skimpy outfit on, obviously thought I was a client. And I just said, I'm the owner. I went in, I just said, look, you can't, the smoke alarm kept going off. I was like, the smoke alarm's going off because you're smoking inside. Look, you can't smoke inside. All the clients are obviously smoking inside. And I said, look, you can't have any more men round. I showed her a video of all, and she was like, oh my, like she was literally obviously heartbroken. I said, look, here's you, here's them. It's very obvious what's going on here. And then I went downstairs, went into the dining room to just check something, literally cash pile on the table. And I was like, do I take that? I didn't take it. I left it there. But obviously, it's very obvious evidence. They were prostitutes. There was no more issues that night. They checked out the next day. No issues. But we've had them where they've stayed before and there's been no issues. And you only find out afterwards when the bin's full of Johnnies. So you got me. But they don't usually trash the place. Like I say, the worst guests you have are like gangs who use it as a stash house.
Hey there, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I come to you with a gift. If you are one of the many people who check out this show and who need ideas, you're lacking direction in which you can go, I've got something for you. I have built a breakdown of the 5, in my view, most accessible business models that you can try today with just a phone and a fucking laptop. What you will see in there is the pros and cons of each business, the barriers to entry within each one, and also people that you can follow today that I trust, that I know, that I like, who you can learn from. If you would like to see this, go to my Instagram, Hey Dean Reilly, click the link in my bio, pop your email in, and I will get that sent over to you. If you find it valuable, please do drop me a message. Let me know what content you'd like to see more of, what would help you. Thank you, and enjoy the episode. One of the things that I've been asked a few times before is like, how do you feel about the impact of having a service accommodation business, right, on the housing crisis in, which is quite common in a lot of big cities? Like how do you feel about that subject when that's brought up?
So it's pretty prominent at the moment, obviously, with the change of like government as well, like Labour coming in. There's a lot of talk about bringing in like licensing, 90-day rules across the board to try and increase the number of houses. But I'll be honest, like, and I don't want this to come across the wrong way, loads of houses are being built and like loads of units are being built. But the problem is the units being built are the wrong units. So I think if they want to change something with the housing crisis, they need to stop building tower blocks with like apartments that are $2-3 a month, Like in Manchester, you can go there and be like, how is there a housing crisis? Every single street, there is a new skyscraper being built. The problem is it's obviously skyscrapers being built and not houses that people can afford. So I don't necessarily think the housing crisis is that rife for someone who's got money. The housing crisis obviously is the housing crisis because the rents are so goddamn high. So they need to stop building skyscrapers and start building houses is the point. But the problem is they need to incentivize people to do that. So they need to incentivize developers to make it more worthwhile to build out the houses. The excuse or explanation of, you get it all the time on TikTok. If you put out a video and it goes slightly viral, you will get someone who says you're taking, for rent to rent, for example, you're taking properties off someone who could be renting it. But in reality, we're taking properties that aren't getting rented anyway, or they're too expensive for people to rent. So we're only doing, we're helping the landlords. But like I say, it's a fundamental issue rather than it's not me causing the problem. There's bigger fish that need to make some decisions to sort the actual issue out.
So just going to segue right into the world of education in property, and specifically our world in service accommodation, right? I spent a fuckload of money on being mentored. It was upwards of 15 grand for a course and mentorship. And there's every Tom, Dick and Harry that you see online who's done something in property is trying to peddle a course for 5-10 grand at a time. Like, what do you think about the ethics of someone selling a course for that much?
Well, straight to the point, we are going to single-handedly kill the 3 to 5 grand rent to SA course market. The people who are selling courses on Instagram, ultimately, half the followers are bought anyway in most cases. And the ones that aren't bought, they've got like one viral video where it's, them and their friend in first class off to Dubai. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. Off to Dubai with 10 to 12 units. I don't want to name names. But the problem is that they show a lifestyle that has been built off the fact of their course selling, not off the fact of the amount of units they've got. And it's not hard to find out the credibility. The problem with social media, it's very easy to just pretend you're doing something you're not. Like I say, if I had a Lamborghini in Dubai, it doesn't necessarily mean that money has come from my rent to SA business. Actually, it's come from all the money I've made from selling courses, because ultimately selling courses is bloody lucrative. What I do say is, over the next 3 months, hopefully we can help to change the course of the industry, especially for the rent to SA side. We're going to push, obviously, the Seiko community really hard, which is the community that we built, which is $49.99 a month. And you get access to which, once it's built out completely, will be the best course in the market, 100%.
I think as well, this is one of the reasons why I think me and you connect and have connected, is because we both fundamentally agree that it's not right to charge people who are unsuspecting that much money. And I think if you have a system or a subscription model that only incentivizes you to stay and pay money if you receive value, because if you don't receive value, you go, right? And that's why I like what you're building with Seiko and what I've been a part of as well. What do you think is, like, if you were to turn back time, right, and go back into your first day, like what, because I know my answer to this, but what do you think is one thing that you wish you knew before starting building this business? Because it obviously sounds so sexy, man. Like, you're making loads of money, but what is something that you didn't know that you wish you did? I can give you my answer while you're thinking, right?
Give me your answer while I'm thinking.
My answer is, I wish I knew it was a 24/7 business.
I think it's not necessarily just my business, but it's every business. I think the expectation that, it obviously is 24 hours. And I don't think it necessarily would have put me off. Like, I don't want to say I would have known that and got put off. The thing I wish I would have knew was, like, a simple one would have been like professional photos earlier. I would have then got bookings straight away rather than waiting 2-3 months to get bookings in. But I was fortunate that I didn't spend a lot of money on mentorship. I found someone who had a very small portfolio. I was very young, got a lot of free information off him. I then paid for mentorship, but it was like £500 a month. I only paid 3 months, like £1,500 to get what I needed to know. But people come up to me and, they say, Dan, can you mentor me? And I'm like, well, you don't need to pay £2.5 grand a month for mentorship because you're not at the stage. So I don't mentor people who don't have 15, 20 units, because I can provide that value in Seiko, which is $49.99 a month, which they can just leave after a month if it's not valuable. Or they go in and they go, actually, this isn't for me. I put so many people off SA business because I'm like, look, you realize, like you say, it probably is the one thing I wish I knew. It's a 24/7 business. There are other businesses that aren't 24/7. You might have to work equal in every business that you want to grow. You're gonna have to work equally as hard. But is this business going to take up your whole life? Can you get a guest, that's calling you the whole time? And that's where, if you're trying to balance it with work, you may look at another business that might be like Amazon FBA, but you've still got hospitality. You've still got customers. You've got sell to, but that you might want to look for a business that doesn't necessarily need that direct to consumer model, which very much is Airbnb in short term.
And the thing is, like, it's all businesses will be work. This is just one component of it that, like, I think I would have irritated me a bit. I don't know, because you're out, you're having dinner or whatever, and if you're not at your size, right? For example, right, your size that you're at, you've got employees that kind of cover everything. My size, I do, but not quite as many as employees, right? So sometimes it still might roll up to me, a message comes in, a guest checks in late, the fucking keys this way or whatever. That type of thing. It's just it's one of the cons, but believe me, the pros I have, the flexibility I have, like the autonomy I have, it balances out for sure.
100%. I think if you're going to, and again, it goes back to like what you want to get out of it, what level you want to get to, how much work you want to do each week. The fact is, it might come back to you, but like you can still build it out so you have people on the ground. Like, one of the reasons I travel so much, and everyone's like, why do you travel all the time? I'm like, it's not like I'm traveling and just on holiday the whole time. Yes, I have a good time when I went to Croatia. I had a great time. And I am on holiday, but I do work everywhere I go. When I go on holiday, I work for 2-3 hours a day minimum, even in Croatia when I was going out every single night, because I love what I do. But also, I want to create a business that allows me to travel. And the only way I'm going to really do that is by not being where the business is, because then you have to. If the call comes to you that there's an issue and the key's in the wrong place, you have to work out. You can't go there and do it. The problem is so many people are like, I'll go do it because it costs me less. That's not the point. It's not a business then. It's just a job. And that point, if you can get, when you start your business, if you can go, okay, this is going to cost X amount to do it. Well, that's how much it costs. That's a business cost. If you don't want that to be your job. If you want it to be that job, then crack on, go do it. But that's the whole, and it's the same with setups. It's the same with everything. And people in the community were asking the other day, should I get a van? And I'm like, well, if you want a van, do you have an interior design business? Do you have a staging business? Do you want to do all the maintenance? Because if you get a van, that's basically what you're saying. You're saying, I'm going to do all the maintenance for my Airbnbs. And no one wants to do that. Well, I mean, you might want to do that. Hands up, you can if you want. I know people love maintenance. But that's what it is. And it comes back to your $10 task, £10 task versus a £1,000 task. It's, if that costs you £100, that's how much it costs you. Either find someone cheaper or pay that fee. Because if you weren't in the UK, and again, it goes back to what you want to do. For me, I want to build a business that I can travel around. That's why I travel, because it means I'm going to build a business that way.
I agree. I think it's so important to just remember that when you are building this, what the hell do you want life to look like? It's such an obvious thing, and it's just so easy to get caught up in the £10 shit, and you don't want to be there. But I want to move to a different side of things. So you obviously post online. You have a good social media presence now. You've grown your Instagram account. You've gotten some notoriety for yourself, and with notoriety of some form online comes negativity. What's like one of the funniest negative comments you've got? Can you remember?
Yeah, so I mean, what happened was with the social media side, just to like give some context, when I was sailing, I was trying to get sponsors for sailing. So I was trying to get like 100K a year in sponsorship, but I was also trying to post about how I'm making 10 grand a month in property. So it was really contradictory. So I didn't really post for the first 3 to 4 years of my business, or 3 years. And then like a year ago, I basically just turned up on the scene with like 30 units and was like, hey guys, I'm here. So I built the following. Yes, like I like put a lot of time into building the following from 1,500 to whatever it is, 4,700, whatever it is. But I haven't posted that much recently. When I was posting more, the biggest thing that like pisses me off ultimately is like, it's your dad's business, it's daddy's money. Because it's not like it, it's a family business and we have worked hard. It wouldn't be where it is without my family. But ultimately, like, it is our business, and like, it's not no one's, it's no one's. My dad didn't put any money into it, for example. It's not like they only put the same amount that I did in. And it's mine and my mum's business that when we started it, so that's really what pisses me off the most. But I don't know if it gets me that much, because haters just make, more views, which makes me more money at the end of the day. So can't complain.
Yeah, that one particularly is quite on the nose, I can imagine. But because you come across very sure-footed and unwavering in your approach to this. Like, I never see you beat up or down or like talking negatively. And look, business is hard, right? Business isn't easy, but like wearing it with a smile, I think is a superpower, genuinely. But have you ever had a day where you actually wanted or thought about quitting?
I mean, 100%. There's many days like this. Like, just because I don't talk about it doesn't mean it doesn't happen, right? What you see on social media and all that kind of thing is ultimately, it's not a performance, but it is, you show what you want to show, right? And the reason I don't talk about the other side of it that much is because when you're in that moment, you don't really want to talk about it that much. There are some days I wake up, I have not that much motivation. Some days I wake up with loads of motivation. One of the reasons I keep myself so busy is because if I'm not busy, then you have time to think, and then you think about other things and whatever, and you get into not dark holes as such, but you lose a bit of motivation. I think, yeah, to sit here and say that I'm happy 100% of the time and always, smile on my face, it's, yeah, maybe I have a good superpower that I can put a smile on. And I love talking to people. And I love like motivating people to do something and showing people what's possible. So it's very easy for me because when I'm talking to people, I'm happy. So when you see me talk on podcasts, I'm always like, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm doing. And it motivates people, and that brings me joy. Hence why I like the community I love doing as well. And that's what you see on social media, because I'm talking to people all the time, or I'm at networking events, or I'm in the property stuff. But when I'm, behind the scenes, it's me on my own in my office, in my flat. It is quite lonely, at the end of the day. But I do have a lot of motivation to get it to where I want to get to. So I've got better definitely over the years, as it's become more comfortable, which is kind of a bit of a danger really, because when it's comfortable, you're like, oh, I could just like stop this and sit on 70k a month. But it's not, that's when you have to disattach from the money side of things. It's actually, okay, I'm not actually doing it I am doing it for the money, yes, and the freedom, but also I do it because I love building businesses, like I said earlier. So where we want to get it to is 1,500 units, £25 million valuation, 3 to 5 years. Start with the end in mind. That is the goal now. Right, let's go do that. As long as I'm working towards something, I'm in a pretty good step. But yeah, to sit here and say that I don't wake up some days, I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to do this, would be a massive lie. There's definitely some days where I lack motivation. Have I ever thought about quitting the business? Yes, but not in the sense that we're talking about here. So like being a family business, I've tried to present offers to my mum, my sister many a times about buying them out, which was the wrong way to do it because I do lack a lot of empathy at times. I'm very good at being like, this is business, this is family. I'm very good at like putting business first or putting, my goals first and stuff like that. So the quitting side was more like me threatening to, right, you do it then. And I'll just go do my own business rather than, so it was the wrong side. It's not the quitting we're talking about here. I've never thought actually this business isn't for me because again, it's not about, the Airbnb or the hospital. It's just the business itself. With every business you do, there's problems. There's going to be issues. It's going to be hard. It's not easy. But ultimately, the longer you're around, the more successful you're going to be. So
there is no easy business, and anyone who tells you there is probably trying to sell you a course. And I think in hearing you say that, what's clear is you've got a goal. You are trying to get to this place, but the person who's listening, right, they might not have actually even gotten to the point of starting something to even give them a goal to work towards with it. They might be stuck just before that, and they might be crippled by fear. And for me, fear was prevalent before I started, right? And one of the things that kind of helped me jump over the line was, how would I feel if I didn't change anything and I was 70 or 80 and I still maintained what I was doing? And that scared the shit out of me. But for you, do you remember what was kind of like pushing you over the line to start this at that point when you did that mentoring?
I think for me, the point of that moment really comes when I stopped the sailing about a year ago, because I could have continued to stay on the British sailing team for another 4 years, campaign towards the Olympics in 2028 and go from there. But it was like quite a big decision to leave sailing. But that exact question is the perfect question to ask yourself. If I sit here now and I'm doing the same thing, yes, you might have some promotions or whatever, but am I happy doing this for the next, even like less than like 3 to 5 years? Like we're quite young and I'm 26. When I'm 30 years old, do I want to be doing exactly what I'm doing right now? I'm like, actually, I want to be at this point then. But just start with the end in mind. And doesn't have to be the actual business model you're going to go down. It's what you want to be doing at that point in your life. It's like, okay, in 3 to 5 years, what do I want to be doing? Or even like right now, what would I love to do? And it's not like you have to, jump ship. I'm not saying you have to have the balls to jump ship straight away and leave your job, because I don't think that's the right thing to do. You want to build someone alongside, replace your income, then you can leave your job if you want to. But I know people who are in property who are on like 6-figure salaries, and the reason they don't leave is because getting a mortgage is bloody easy, and so they may as well stay on their job, and also they love their job. So they're like, actually, I can build my property, but your job becomes more relaxing because it's not that much pressure on anymore, and it's like, actually, and then at the point when they want to eventually switch across, they can. So yeah, I mean, that's the point. I think it's more, with the job side of it, you don't have to, jump ship straight away. It doesn't have to be like a bang. Just think about that question of, okay, what do I enjoy what I do right now? Because all I want to get across to people is that open your eyes up. There is a lot of things out there you can do. And hopefully you'll look at myself as someone and go, actually, there is a business model there. You don't have to do my business model. But there are so many business models, especially like right now, there is a serious like digital gold rush where, there's so many ways to make money. It is so easy to make money right now, whether it's in crypto, Amazon FBA, Facebook, buying businesses. You can buy businesses for no money. Like, it can happen. There's so much out there right now.
What I was thinking there as you were saying that was, you said when you're 30, you want it to be this, right? And I think that highlights something that a lot of people maybe struggle with or don't do quite enough, which is to think in terms of years. Like, think what you can accomplish if you started today and did something for 2 years. Like, for example, using me as an example, 2 years ago, I didn't have a property business. 2 years ago, I was in a job and I did this thing. It was really tough. It was shit. There was days I wanted to pull my hair out, but over time, things start to change, right? And I think people struggle with thinking far ahead. I know I still struggle with it. I'm not saying I've figured it out, but it was something that just stuck out to me there. And I think what stops people is probably, like we said, that fear, and alongside fear, maybe a void of belief. Like if you were advising someone now how to kind of change the narrative, the talk track in their head to something more empowering and something more positive, how would you recommend they could start to change the way that sounds in their head?
First of all, like, you need to, be very open with yourself about who you are as a person. Don't try and be someone you're not. So first off, you need to work out mentally where you're at in terms of, are you someone who's optimistic, pessimistic? Are you someone that sees opportunities or problems, stuff like that first? Do a test, like we were talking earlier about disc profiles. So go online, you can type in disc and it will give disc profile, and you can profile yourself, and you just answer questions. It will give you your profile. It basically tells you, it'll give you like a 15-page document of exactly who you are as a person. And we do that with all our employees now. And that in itself is just, okay, now I'm more aware of who I am. Okay, right. And it will tell you like ways you can pivot to make you think in different ways. Because if I sit here with someone who's really pessimistic, they bring problems to me, I instantly see solutions. I instantly see opportunities. So I've never really had a fear of failure, because I'm like, every time you fail, you're one step closer to succeeding. So the fear of failure has never really been a thing for me. I've always been like competitive, and if I ever get nervous, ever get like stuff, the butterflies in my stomach, I'm like, right, I'm ready for battle, let's go. It's rather than being like, oh, I'm nervous, oh, I might mess up, oh my gosh, what if I say the wrong thing? Because everyone cares about what other people think so much. And it's like, in reality, everyone's thinking the same as you are. Everyone's sat there thinking about themselves, thinking about, what if I do this wrong? What if I do that wrong? No one has the time or capacity to think about what you're doing. And if they do, then they're probably insecure themselves, and they're just reflecting out what they're feeling on the inside. So first of all, work out who you are as a person, and then you can actually act on that and go, okay, so I am naturally pessimistic. So when someone presents me an idea, maybe I can talk to someone who's more of an optimist, and like, maybe you could come to me and get energy from me and go, okay, actually, yeah, and get the help off the right people. Or you can look at it, and in that disc profile, it actually give you ways to be, okay, rather than, once you know, like I say, once you know who you are, it's very easy to change. You can't change it if you don't know what you are. And people are too scared to admit who they are. It's okay to be a pessimist. It's okay to be risk averse. You don't have to be optimistic all the time. Smile on your face. It's okay to be someone who's fear of failure. But what it is okay, can I change that? And if I know that and I'm scared of the failure, you go, actually, what's the worst that could happen? Okay. The thing with rent to SA, everyone's like, oh, what if I can't fill the property? If you can't fill the property, you've got a fully furnished house that looks bloody amazing. Put it on open rent, net even. Like, you could just put your exact cost. You can make £100 a month profit. Okay. Do that 10 times, that's £1,000 a month. But it's very safe because you've got basically just a normal letting, which is what letting agents do. So it's like worst case scenario, right? You try it, you might lose a bit of money, but in reality, you won't even lose that much money because you can just rent it out on open rent for the exact same price you're paying and just net zero.
What I love about what you just said there is just being aware of what you are like and not looking at it negatively. Like, if you're risk averse, then you're risk averse. Use that. Like, I've plenty of friends who are super like standoffish when it comes to going for something, but it's good for them. And then I have other friends like me who's maybe a bit more on the impulsive side. And that works because that might be something that maybe you'll go for something when you might not maybe shouldn't have, right? I'm going to ask you your thoughts and just segue here to your thoughts on a phrase, because it really comes across in you. You are very much more a glass half full. Even the way you talk, you're like, come to me with a problem, I think of solution. I think of opportunity. What do you think of the phrase, the world belongs to optimists?
I've actually never heard that phrase before, to be fair. I quite like it because I'm optimist, so it's all good. I think, like we just said there, there's superpowers in both, right? There's superpower in being a pessimist and optimist, and also if you can find someone who's the opposite to you and be a business partners, then you'll make a great match, because one of you is going to be pushing risky side, the other one's going to be seeing all the problems, they find the solutions. It's an absolute power team. So that, you can't, ultimately, if you're an optimist like myself, I still need to delve into the pessimist side, like, because I'm aware of it, I tone it down sometimes. I have to think of the other side as well. And that's the same goes for when you're a pessimist, you have to think of the other side. So I think, like, ultimately the reason, like, pessimists, if you said pessimists rule the world, it doesn't quite have the same kind of ring to it. People with glass half empty. But I'm saying you can easily just change, if you're a pessimist, you can easily just literally flip on its head and go, actually, that might make me an optimist because I can now see the problems more than the optimist can, and I can make those I can, delve into those solutions and actually push it even harder, knowing actually, okay, I've already solved all these problems. Whereas I might go full head first into it and I'll fail on the way. So whereas you might go full head first into it, already having the solutions for the problems you've just seen that I haven't seen yet. So actually a pessimist is like really powerful. Likewise, the optimist, I might act faster. So I might be a bit further ahead the whole time. So it's really, I think in social media, you might think optimists rule the world because everyone you see on social media is someone who's like, who projects themselves as an optimist, whether they are or not. But it's, you see on social media, it's like flaunting this, flaunting that. I've got this business. It's like, bang, 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 I'm more optimistic. But in reality, some of them are probably pessimist.
I think when I think of that phrase, I think of like, I don't know, Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, someone who's just like, we are going to go to fucking Mars, that level of optimism. And myself, I'm actually quite pessimistic. I would often predict worst case, maybe to my detriment sometimes, I don't know. But I definitely think making space for a more positive talk track is a very practical thing to do.
Also, like the level we're at as well, like unless you want to be Elon Musk, you're probably not listening to this podcast. Let's be real. You're probably in your basement somewhere building something absolutely crazy. So it's like put into perspective again, like start with the end in mind. Where do you want to be? If you want to be Elon Musk, then like I say, you got some work to do. Like that guy was, cooking up some stuff early doors. He's probably building PayPal at my age right now or sold it for some whatever millions. Same with Jeff Bezos, like he's already grinding, already starting. So if you want to listen to this podcast and you're not already doing that, you're probably not a Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk or anything like that. So if you are listening, then just, work out who you are and then work with the end in mind of like, where do you want to get to? Because it's also like, you could be like 30, 40, you might have 2 kids. Like the risk preferences for me, I don't have any, responsibilities right now, The only responsibility I have is my business. And at the end of the day, I'm very optimistic that if it failed, I just build another one tomorrow. And actually, I already have 7, so it's not like one. I'm already very well diversified, so it's not like if all of them are going to fail exactly at the same time. But yeah, it's the goalposts are different for everyone. And yes, they might always change, but that's why it's like, what do you want to do? So that when they do change, you're still enjoying this part of it, the whole process side. And nothing's easy. Your job's not easy at the end of the day.
Hey, hope you're enjoying the episode with Dan. The episode is about to round off now. I do ask Dan one more really deep question and he gives a deep answer. And if you have enjoyed this episode, I urge you to take some action based on what Dan has said. You've heard him talk about how he initially started this as a side hustle. And also you've heard me talk about how this was a way for me to just merely not do my job that I wasn't really in any way interested in. And for you, it might be something different, but it can be a vehicle of sorts to get you away from where you are now to maybe where you want to be. So I hope you found a lot of value in this. And what I would like to hear from you is, what questions could I have asked Dan throughout this interview that would have been interesting to you? What would have been helpful to you? Please drop me a DM on Instagram or LinkedIn and I will take everything you say on board because you are exactly who this is intended for. And if you're finding value, that is a job well done in my eyes. So last thing I'll say is, if you have enjoyed this, if you've taken something from it, please do support the show by sharing it with a friend who is maybe in a similar situation or who wants a similar thing as you. Equally, you can support by rating the show on Spotify or Apple or subscribing if you're perhaps watching on YouTube. And I would be eternally grateful. I'll send you back into the last part of this conversation with Dan. I really hope that it was an enjoyable listen at the very least, and best case, a useful listen in making change for what you want to change in your life. Much love. I'll catch you next time. And it's just asking that question, like, what do you want to do? And we get caught up in, like, we've all got our shit. We're all doing this. We all probably are guilty of going 1,000,000 miles an hour and being nonstop. And it's like, you might as well do something that you want to do because it is going to end someday. And one thing I was curious to ask, because you're a very mission orientated man, you visualize, you're like clear cut in where you're going. How do you want to be remembered?
I'll be honest, one of the things I go talk about quite a lot is I just don't want anyone to talk bad about me. I don't want to be that guy. Like, I know a lot of people that come to me and talk bad about people. Oh, this guy says this on social media. Like, these aren't who they say they are. I just want to be remembered as a guy who was always honest. He is who he says he is. He only ever tried to help people. Like, I have given, like, an example would be a woman had spent £25,000 on courses. And I just said, look, I'll give you a free 1 hour consultation. And this is where my hourly rate's, $325 an hour now. I said, look, let's do a free consultation. I want to help you out. literally helped her out with some automation, showed her through it on the call, burst into tears, crying her eyes out. And like that gave me a massive, obviously I wasn't happy that she was crying, but I was happy that I'd helped her. And like, if the more people I can help, the happier I'll be. Like, I just want to be remembered as someone who only ever tried to help anyone, only ever tried to provide value, and someone who just, like, I would hope that people don't look at me and go, obviously there's going to be some haters out there who are going to say that, like, yeah, well, he just makes it look so easy or whatever it is. But I don't want someone who actually knows me to be like, yeah, he's an arsehole. Because I know a lot of people who know people, who have spoke to people, and they come away like, yeah, who's that guy, you know? And I don't think I portray that to anyone that I actually meet. And I just want to hope that, yeah, anyone who actually meets me and knows me has that thought about me. And ultimately, yeah, I'd want to be remembered as, you know, building one of the biggest management companies in the UK, selling it for 25 mil and then being happy as Larry. But it's very much, that's more of like what I want to be remembered for.
I think if I was the person listening to this, I'd be pumped up because you've kind of just explained, hey, look, in a few short years, they might feel long when you're doing it, you can grow a big business, and you can grow it so that you can travel. You can grow it so that you can build a big empire. You can grow it to build whatever you want. And I think you've also given a gateway, right? You've got Seiko, the community, which I'm going to link in the description. So anyone who wants to join and can join on the free side and want to check it out, they can dabble in this as a means to create that freedom. But I think you've shared a lot of wisdom today, Dan, and it's been great having you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.